Hey, well, good afternoon, good evening, or good lunchtime. First of all, thank you very much for joining this webinar with Celaton. I think one of the things we try and do with the RPA Academy as much as possible is just make people aware of everything that we see that's interesting going on in the market, and this absolutely falls into that category. So Richard Hill and Gina Gray from Celaton are here to join us. As normal, we've got like 5 topics to go through, 5 sort of key questions and areas. If you get any questions along the way, just ask them in the question box. We've got our usual sort of 2 polls that we'll be asking during the session as well. But I mean, Gina and Richard, do you want to introduce yourselves?
Gina.
Hello everyone, I'm Gina Gray. I'm the Commercial Director for Celaton, so I'm responsible for all of our customers, all of our revenue, and I work closely with Richard on the implementation and project management, and I've also more recently taken over Head of Marketing.
And I'm Richard Hill, CTO for Celaton, so responsible for InStream, which is our product which we deliver as a service. So I look after the development team and the product roadmap for InStream, and look after our implementation team who deliver that to our customers, and our customer support team who look after the customers.
And what, I mean, how did you get here? What's your journey in the last, I guess, number of years? How did you get to this point?
So I've been with Celaton since the start, and
right.
Celaton was formed out of 2 previous organisations that came together, and we had a problem of business process management and business process automation, where we had customers doing these things and they were starting their kind of digital transformation and digital process automation journey, and InStream was assisting with that, and we saw an opportunity to do things better and do things cleverer, and that's really where InStream came from. So I've been here since the beginning.
All right, perfect. Yeah, it's always good to know the history. And in terms of what is intelligent process automation? I mean, I'm always intrigued by terminology, and industries are very good at creating specific words, but how do you define intelligent process automation?
Absolutely. So, I mean, if you think of kind of business process management first, and actually looking at the processes that happen in an organization and a business, and just saying, well, how can we do that best and how to do that most efficiently? And everyone's used to that idea, and kind of looking at how to optimize things. And then it might be that an organization has taken the step of what's next. And if we look at digital process automation or digital transformation, how do we apply software to assist with that? And you can look at the tasks within a process and apply kind of logic to those and what have you. There's lots of computer systems out there that apply that approach. Intelligent process automation is really the next step and the next evolution. How do we use machine learning, artificial intelligence, and actually apply software so that it can learn from the people in the process, and where applicable, start to automate tasks within a process, and by learning what people did with those tasks previously. So it's the next step in the digital transformation.
So your clients have bought an RPA platform already, and then applying you on top of that?
Not necessarily. So we are able to, kind of ride off the back of RPA and the good work that's done for customers. And sometimes we'll have our customers come to us who have started an RPA journey, but perhaps hit a limitation. But we don't need RPA in order to deliver InStream. We will deliver an end-to-end process, as a service, kind of without that need.
And have your clients typically done like normal RPA first and then are evolving, or are they jumping straight into IPA?
So normally, or
in reality, the bulk of our clients have gone straight for the InStream solution. A few of them have already looked at or have invested in RPA, but the bulk of them have already come straight to us.
Yeah, perfect. And then, the concept of combining RPA with machine learning, do you want to sort of start talking through why that's important?
Yeah, so the great thing about RPA is that it's very good at kind of structured data, structured tasks, repetitive work, And I like to think of it as being kind of the invisible man and able to mimic those actions of a human. But it is very much geared up around known inputs, known process, known outputs, structure, structure, structure. So by applying kind of machine learning to that and having people in the loop, then we're able to take that to the next step and learn the kind of decisions that people are making. So looking at features of a document and data points within a document, taking some of that content of something which is unstructured, you're able to start to learn, well, why did a person make that decision? So by feeding in stream examples, just as a normal kind of consequences of processing documents, InStream can learn and start to take on those tasks itself. It allows us to automate the things that previously wouldn't have been able to be automated.
And I think it's really important as well that for companies that have already invested in RPA technology, you don't replace it with our technology. It's complementary, it's additional to. So I think the important thing is actually the RPA, the traditional RPA robots and the InStream solution that we provide do different things within an organisation. So quite often your RPA robots are in the middle office and back office because they're handling that structured content. They're moving data from one place to another. They may be scraping information from one system to another. They may be taking spreadsheets and uploading that into different systems. Whereas InStream is very much about what happens at the beginning of the process. So those documents that are coming into an organisation from customers, from suppliers, that have this information in them that's needed to be extracted, needed to be validated, other information needed to enrich it, that a traditional robot can't do in the RPA space because that data is generally not structured. And that's where our technology, where the machine learning, where the artificial intelligence becomes an add-on, if you like, to RPA. So those companies that have already invested in RPA technology, those assets are still very much used, but in conjunction with the solution like InStream, you start to really enable companies to go on their proper digital transformation journey. So that's why it's really important, because they have different jobs to do in those processes.
Yeah, and I mean, we see organizations all the time asking us, how, I guess, one strategic, supplier for the next 10 years. The market is very fluid. You may actually use several RPA platforms in different parts of your organization. You may want to use RPA first and then something on top of it. I think, this concept of one platform fits all, currently doesn't exist in the marketplace. And I think, the good thing for what you're doing is that if you're talking to people who understand RPA, they'll also understand the gaps in RPA and where you'd fit in there. So do you find yourself talking more to sort of second generation buyers or people who actually are coming understanding gaps? Or do you find yourself talking to all ranges?
It's all ranges, actually. And I mean, unlike Richard, I've only been with Celaton for 5.5 years. And when I joined, the RPA market was only just starting to gain traction in the marketplace. And the artificial intelligence / machine learning market was this black art, voodoo, terrifying environment that people didn't really want to touch. It sounded amazing, but it was really, really scary. But we did start to bring on clients in the early days that were early adopters, that were disruptive in their market, that wanted to really grow their businesses. And from the back of that, we've then been able to develop InStream to really provide solutions to real world business problems that occur in enterprise businesses. I think the other thing as well is our technology is very much focused on those larger enterprise businesses, those blue chip companies, those global organizations, whereas RPA is a tool that can be used in those organizations and has been very successfully, but often in those smaller companies as well. And one of the things about our technology, any machine learning type technology, is it needs volume. and it needs lots and lots and lots of data to learn. So we have to be positioned in a slightly different space. So I think that's important, and I think it's also important to focus on what is the business problem you're trying to address, and make sure that you are engaging the right company, the right software, the right tool to address that particular business problem.
Okay, I'm intrigued by the concept of human in the loop. And it's a great phrase. I mean, it's been around for a while, I guess. But do you find it's relatively intuitive to people that when you're talking to them, they understand, where how it fits in compared to where technology starts and stops?
I think so. I mean, human in the loop is just a more friendly way of trying to say supervised learning or reinforced learning, and those kind of computer science type terms. I think there's this want for people to want artificial intelligence to be the thing of sci-fi, where it just becomes self-aware and just kind of goes around consuming things and works it all out for itself. But that's not what happens. What happens is you show a set of data, and you give it knowns. You say these inputs, this is the output I'm expecting from that, and it's the machine's job to work out how you did it. But it does need to be given that learning set, and then we can have the kind of test set to validate things, and those knowns that you hold back from the system, and it can validate it, and then you can decide your confidences and move forward and make use of the model. So the supervised learning element, human in the loop, we hoped was a more friendly way of kind of personalizing that, and people realizing that it's the same people doing the same job, and actually every time they process an exception, then the software can learn from that process of the exception. So with Instream, we try and apply that kind of human in the loop and that supervised learning, to use the computer science term, just by getting people to do what they would normally do. And we build up that knowledge by people processing, to begin with, lots of examples, and it gets shown the simple things and the more complicated things. And Instream will very quickly learn the simple ones and pick up on that. The more complicated ones it needs more examples of. But that person within the process, that human in the process, is the thing that allows that to happen. So I think people are starting to kind of understand that, it's working in conjunction, kind of augmenting what people are doing, which is where the AI or the machine learning and those other kind of buzzwords are going to help.
Yeah, my favorite buzzword. Oh, sorry, carry Gina.
I was going to say, I think it's interesting. Our ex-CEO has been using the phrase human in the loop for about the last 8 to 10 years. And it was always what's the human in the loop bit? And the RPA vendors have traditionally been pushing this full automation. You don't need people. Interestingly, I was at Bloopers and Worlds in March, and they talked about human in the loop. And I've noticed that the RPA vendors are starting to coin that, which is a really good thing, because it starts to build credibility with the terminology. It starts to build confidence with customers and with users that actually having humans involved in this type of technology is a good thing rather than a failure.
Yeah, I was going to say my favorite buzzword in all this technology at the moment is people, because I think it's the one part that we're starting to go away from. So we're going to move on to that actually in a second. We've got 2 polls that we're going to run. I'm just going to launch the first one, and you can vote, over the next 5 minutes on this first question. But it's really, now that we've been talking about, RPA and what IPA really is compared to RPA, can you just raise your hands and vote on, how far along you see your organization being in the journey from RPA to IPA? So you should see like 4 options there. So I'll keep that there for a bit. But in the meantime, so moving on to kind of the barrier side of it, obviously technologies are fantastic, the opportunities are huge, but what are the kind of barriers you're seeing to the adoption of more advanced forms of automation?
It's similar but changing, certainly in my time here at Celaton. So initially the barriers were fear factor. People didn't really understand what it was, didn't really understand how it worked, and oh my goodness, is it going to take over my business? Is it going to remove the need for me to have people doing jobs? And I think now it's much more about the culture of an organisation. So since I've been here, there's been a couple of projects which haven't been successful. And the reason they haven't been successful is the culture within the organisation, within the customer, has not pushed the users to use the technology, but has said, well, if you want to use it, you can, but we're not going to force you. On the flip side,
you've gone along, the concept of the technology has been bought in by sort of senior leadership or senior management, but they haven't kind of enforced it to be used. Is that what you mean?
Correct, exactly right. So the senior management has made a decision that this is the technology they're going to be using, and they've told the teams, the users, the operators, this is what we're now going to be using, but we're not going to enforce it. So if the culture is a bit softer like that, that can be a barrier. The other areas where we really recommend, and it comes along the same vein, to be honest with you, we recommend when we start engaging with organisations that you engage at grassroots. So we're always speaking to C-level, senior management and managers and supervisors, but actually never underestimate the value that your operators, your grassroots people, the people that are processing these documents every single day, they have more knowledge than anybody in the organisation about their own jobs. They have more knowledge about what comes in, they have more knowledge about the workarounds they have to manage, because in every organisation we've been to, there are workarounds. So make sure you engage those people at the very beginning. What you tend to find...
Sorry to interrupt. When you say at the beginning, would that, if it's part of the sales cycle, that's going to slow your sales cycle down, and I guess be frustrating for you. But when you say at the beginning, where does that mean?
Well, so once you've engaged with the stakeholders, if you like, the senior stakeholders, and you've qualified that this is a real opportunity, you've qualified they have budget, and you've carried out what I call the traditional sales questions.
Yep.
The way we go through a sales process is once you've got the ticks in those boxes, then the next stage is to actually, for us to really understand what is the problem that we are trying to address. So there are certain use cases where we deliver in stream, and they are accounts payable, accounts receivable, sales order processing, claims, and customer correspondence.
Yep.
And you may sit there and think, well, an invoice process is an invoice process. They're all the same. They're absolutely not. So one of the parts of our sales process is to carry out diagnostics to understand what are the challenges facing that particular organisation within that department, within that specific process. And by carrying out diagnostics and sitting down with the people that do that job, interestingly, often managers are concerned that by having us engaging with the grassroots people, that will put the fear of God into them that they're going to lose their jobs. In fact, in reality, it's completely the opposite. What tends to happen is there's this huge sigh of relief that 3 hours a day I spend on doing something that's benign and delivers no value to myself personally in my job or the business will be done by a piece of software, and I can get on building supplier relationships, making sure that everything is happening, answering questions, and actually doing a much better job for the organisation. So getting buy-in at all levels within the organisation early on in the sales cycle is really important. The other barriers that we see often is IT. So we don't tend to go and approach IT about our solution in the first instance, because actually the people that own the P&L, the people that own the budgets, so the operational people, the finance people, the C-level people, those are the people that are going to be really interested because of the value that InStream is going to deliver their organisation and the impact it's going to have on their P&L. IT often, and this is not a slight on IT at all, so if there's any IT people listening to this, please don't think this is a negative, But you guys have, over the years, had budgets cut, budgets cut, budgets cut. And what that often leads to is a reduction in staff, in headcount. And you often have more projects than you can deliver. And what then happens is this is just another project. And it becomes more of a challenge for them rather than something they want to embrace. So we embrace and we involve the IT organisation at the appropriate time. And Richard and his team have designed InStream in such a way that it's a minimal amount of effort and resource needed from an IT department to get it implemented, to get it tested and to get it live. So actually that tends to be a positive, but if you go to them in the first place, you'll often get serious pushback. And the other area where we find there are barriers, and again we encourage people not to do this, is where somebody's been told by the CEO, I want AI, or I want machine learning, or I want an intelligent process automation project, go and make it happen. And then what happens is everybody runs around saying, oh my God, we need to make this happen, the CEO's told us to, and they try and do everything all at once. I'm sure everybody's heard this saying, eating an elephant whole. What's really important actually is that you pick one or two use cases with business problems where you feel that working with us, we can deliver real value. And if you focus on one of those first of all and do your proof of concept, and we follow the process properly, doing the diagnostic, understanding the problems and working with our customer in a partnership, then actually you get successful POCs. Where they tend to fail is where a company tries to make shortcuts or do everything all at once.
And just in terms of commercials, you know, if someone is, when they're doing a proof of concept with you, they're still testing the water, they're still seeing if it's going to work in their environment. They haven't committed to a 100-year contract with you or anything.
No. So the way we work is we're happy to do proof of concepts, we're happy to do pilots. They are all paid for, and yep. I have a sort of a strong feeling about that. I've worked in the technology industry in various organisations now for the last 20 years, and I think the reason it's important that organisations pay for proof of concepts and pilots is they recognise the value and they will invest the right time, the right resource and the right commitment to see it through as a positive POC. If there's no charge for it, then there won't be the same level of investment from the customer. But that doesn't commit them to a long-term contract. That comes after a successful POC.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I was just clarifying that there is no, this is them putting their toe in the water. So you're with them, hand-holding them, helping them choose the right process or parts of a process. And it's interesting because we just, you know, looking at the results of the poll, you know, vast majority, I mean, probably 80% are still very much in the RPA space. And I think, you know, this is kind of, there's a whole new next wave of, you know, what happens next, what do we do with what we've learned and where do we go next and what are the limitations. And I think the more people realize that, well, actually the next step, the commercial next step isn't a kind of a, by another, you know, 5-year commitment to a bit of software. It's actually, well, test out the next thing. And this is one of the things I love most about this market is that it's a different way and a different way it's not like you have to buy SAP and then it doesn't work, you just put in Oracle instead. You can be very nimble and test things out and see if they work. And if they don't work for you, then there's lessons learned, but you're not having to commit huge amounts of money, huge amounts of time to something that's kind of a moonshot, to use a very topical phrase today. But so that's why I think, you know, the value of just trying stuff out, you know, getting nimble, you know, seeing what they want, seeing what's going to fill the next sort of level of automation, and your model seems to fit very much into that.
Yes, it does. And I think the other thing is, as I said earlier, we very much work in partnership with our customers rather than a traditional supplier-customer relationship, because what we want to do is have longevity with our customers and not just sell them a solution. We sell them a solution to that business problem, and then we work with them across their organisation to say, okay, where else can we help you? Where else can we provide solutions to other business problems? So we're very much a consultative partnership solution engagement with our customers.
Yeah, and so I mean, in terms of getting started, I mean, what's the let me just get to the right question. But what do people, I mean, what is their first next step if they've, I mean, the vast majority of our audience are kind of in the RPA zone. What's kind of the first next step to the next part of their journey?
Well, the first thing to understand is, where have they had success with RPA, and where have they hoped to have success with RPA, but it's maybe not quite delivered what they'd hoped for. And that would be the first area to look at. Now, once you've identified that area / those areas, then we can look at what areas can InStream help with. And one of the things that we are very focused on in this organisation is only working with customers in areas and solving business problems where we can add real value. And if we look at it and we don't believe we can add real value, then we'll tell the customer straight away, this is not InStream, InStream's not going to solve this problem for you. And if we have knowledge of another solution that might do, then we'll always make a recommendation.
I think as from the poll you just said, a lot of the listeners are already using RPA. There will have been limitations. So there will be data or documents that are being consumed where attempting to kind of extract some key data from them, you might have tried and failed, or attempting to understand the the unstructured content, the sentiment of something has worked, but there will always be exceptions. And how do you deal with those exceptions, and how do you deal with that process? So I think actually coming at it from that RPA, kind of user point of view, and understanding where you've hit problems is definitely a good place to start. And as Gina said, it's about identifying that one where you've got a good volume and a problem where helping to optimize and speed up part of that process, tasking that process, adds real value. Because then the return on investment, kind of comes back, and it's worth looking at those type of problems. But real world problems is where it's always best to start. Don't try and invent something and think, or wouldn't it be nice if AI could be applied for that? Find where you've got that pain point, where you really have to have people that currently are the only way that can help you with that task in the process.
Well, on that, I'm just going to launch the poll, because based on what we've heard so far around what exactly intelligent automation is, and people coming from an RPA perspective, they'll have an idea as to where they see gaps in their current solutions. So I'm just going to launch the poll as to, the question is, where within your organization are you looking to apply IPA first? And I guess that's largely going to be based on where you see the limitations of RPA currently. So I'll run that currently. Can I ask a question about, you mentioned ROI there. One of the questions I had was around companies' investment in what you're offering. Do they see that as kind of is it part of an existing budget, or do they carve out a new budget? Is it something they kind of see as a standalone next stage that they have to go back to their investment committee or the board to get funding for? Or is it kind of tactical enough that it can fit into existing budgets?
It's a bit of both, actually. So the average ROI with InStream is 12 months. Sometimes it's as quick as 9 months. So there is a budget that will be needed for the implementation fee and for the upfront costs. However, once you start moving forwards and you have a live service and solution, and you're paying your monthly subscription fee, within 12 months, ordinarily, you've had your payback. So the budget almost becomes self-fulfilling, if you like. On the larger projects with maybe a longer lead time for implementation because of complexities, because of development requirements, often there will be a budget. But invariably, when we start engaging with companies and the senior stakeholders, there is already a willingness with an outline budget within their organisation.
And in terms of the overall governance, does this glide into, if there's an existing RPA project, does what you're doing continue just become part of their remit as well? The COE starts to manage, your next evolution, or is it a kind of viewed as a separate project and a different kind of iteration or a step up?
Yeah, again, it varies really on where it's being implemented and how it's being implemented and what the problem is that it's looking to solve. So if the problem we're solving is an extension of the problem they've been solving with RPA and it's reached its limitation, then absolutely we will, from a governance perspective, we will form part of that RPA project. If the customer has not already invested in RPA, or this is not a department or a business problem where RPA has already been applied, then invariably we will be a separate project.
Okay, perfect. And who, I mean, typically if it is a separate, if it is a kind of brand new, experience of automation in this advanced format and they haven't done RPA before, who's your typical customer? Who's the person that knocks on your door first?
Often the business.
You can't say it varies again. You did it 3 times.
Sorry?
You can't say it varies. You've said that 3 times.
No. So if it's accounts and finance,
yeah.
It will be CFO, it will be finance director, it will be the person that owns the budget for that. If it's, for example, we deliver sales order processing, so that's generally the sales director. The people that own the budget for that particular department will be those that come knocking on our door first, because as I said earlier, they have a cost, they have a budget, they want to improve their P&L, and if they can achieve an ROI of 12 months within their department, then that frees up other budget for them to go and spend on other things that they maybe wouldn't have been able to in the first place.
Okay, so this is very function. They come out. You get your first approach from a potential client is someone with a business or a functional problem for their function, rather
yes.
than someone strategic top down saying we need to do this stuff across our organization.
Invariably, it's the department owner. Yes, absolutely.
Well, so I'm just going to close the poll and on that second poll and share the results. In terms of, again, accounts and finance always comes up very top, very near the top of the list for most automations currently. But I'm amazed to see sales up there, so high. That probably plays very much to your strengths and what you see in your market.
Yeah, I find that interesting and very positive actually. We've seen some great successes in kind of sales order processing, where it's quite surprising how paper-based a lot of those processes can still be. Even if the orders actually arrived as emails, there still seems to be a lot of paper in those processes. So that's positive that people are looking at that as well.
In terms of HR and legal, have you got any sort of just quick use cases you'd have for those?
Not really. We do a little bit of HR for a couple of our customers. That tends to be the storage of documents, being able to be very searchable on those documents and extracting some key data. But HR and legal for us so far are not key use cases that we push and drive forwards with our customers.
Okay, perfect. So just to, I guess we reached just after the half-hour mark. Just to close off, do you want to sort of just summarise what you think we should be thinking about as we continue the next stage of all of our journeys?
So for me, it's don't limit your thinking to what RPA can do today. So if you've reached kind of barriers before, don't automatically assume that those barriers can't be kind of pushed through, and think about alternatives. And if you've reached barriers because there will always be the exception, there'll always be the scribbled handwritten invoice. Well, embrace that fact and realize that people are still part of the business world and will be hopefully for a long time to come. And going back to that term, human in the loop, that you can work with people and exceptions, and you can use IPA and RPA to take away the tasks. We like to think about replacing tasks, not necessarily we solve entire processes, but remove tasks from them to help speed them up.
Right, excellent.
And from my perspective is your intelligent process automation projects, your digital transformation projects, don't treat them as technology projects. They are business projects because it's going to impact your business users, it's going to impact your suppliers and your customers, rather than it being another technology implementation. It's about how does it impact the business, what value does it bring to the business, not technology.
Definitely.
With the one caveat as you always have to involve IT.
Absolutely, absolutely, but that shouldn't be your starting point. That should be your, guys, we need your help to get this implemented and running and live, rather than can you go and investigate this and work out if it's what we need for our business, because invariably they possibly won't know the answer to the question because they're not involved in the day-to-day processing within those different departments and use cases that we've just talked about.
Excellent. Well, I mean, Rich and Gina, I mean, first of all, I'm fascinated by the topic. You know, I mean, technology generally, there's so many different things going on. It's hard to kind of get a grasp on everything across all these niches. But you know, what you're doing is feels like the next frontier. And also, I'm impressed by organisations that have had a vision and managed to stick around so long that the vision is now in the right time for the market. So I think, you know, it's a fascinating time for you to be sort of, you know, in your sweet spots, and I'm sure evolving beyond that. So if anyone's getting questions at all for Richard and you know, we can easily pass them on to them. We'll be sharing the webinar details and the recording and the transcript over the next couple of days, and we'll gladly connect you with everyone. Just feel free to reach out via myself or Rob. So I think that's it from my end. Richard, Gina, thank you very much. You can enjoy the rest of the presentation.
Pleasure. Thank you for your time, everybody.
Excellent. Take care. Bye. Excellent.
Look, you still there?
I think we're still here. The webinar's closing off.
Oh.
Might just suddenly go.